لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. First of all, I would like to offer my condolences on the 40th day of the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the Arba'in, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put us amongst the real followers of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu was salam. Since we are approaching the Arba'in of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, I thought that it would be beneficial and relevant if we talk a little bit about the Ziyaratul Arba'in and about a certain phrase of this ziyarah. And before that, we all know, as I assume, that how the ziyarah of the 40th day of the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, how precious this day is and how precious this ziyarah is. The very famous hadith from Imam al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam, in which His Eminence enumerates the signs of Shia, and he enumerates the Ziyaratul Arba'in as one of the signs and characteristics and features that the Shia must be having. Of course, the ziyarah in this sense means to go for the ziyarah and to go and have pilgrimage to the grave of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam over there in Karbala. But since we have not this honor and this privilege to be there and do this ziyarah, it's always beneficial if we do this ziyarah even from a distance far, far away. This is the phrase that I'm going to talk about a little bit. Actually, this ziyarah is narrated from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. The person named Safwan is quoting Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, saying and teaching us this ziyarah. And in the middle of this ziyarah, this phrase exists, that the following, that وَبَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيكَ لِيَسْتَنْقِذَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الْجَهَالَةِ وَحَيْرَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ. Before I go to this phrase and talk about this phrase, I have to mention that in the history there have been many discussions and many actually research on the reasons and philosophy of the uprising of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. What is the philosophy and the reason, and what are the reasons for which Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam raised up against the government and tried his best actually to stand against this cruel state that Yazid la'natullah alayhi had at that time. There have been a lot of discussion over this issue and this subject. Many people has talked about this issue, and try to elaborate on different angles of this uprising of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. For different reasons, for different, actually by different approaches. And the reason that these people have talked about this uprising could be one of the followings. Sometimes they try to understand a phenomenon and try to actually understand it well, why this phenomenon happened. Actually, phenomenologically, they approached this uprising, the uprising of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So, this is sometimes or some other times, they go for this uprising and study about this uprising in order for knowing what was the situation at that time, and in order for understanding the history, what this uprising happened. So they talked about this, they tried to understand the roots and the reasons that this uprising happened. And there are some other reasons. But the most important reason that one may go to this uprising and understand and try to study this reason, the most important reason in my understanding is we have to understand this uprising and this event in order for applying this uprising or this actually event on our time situation. Try to understand the reasons, try to understand the features that has been going on at that time, the problems that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam tried to fight with, and then we try to customize that situation, that era, onto our situation and our era. So this is, I think, one of the most important reasons in order for approaching and in order for studying the uprising of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. And in this phrase that I read you from the Ziyarat al-Arba'in, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is being quoted as saying that the reason that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam raised up is فَأَعْذَرَ فِي الدُّعَاء وَمَنَحَ النُّصْحِ وَبَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيكَ لِيَسْتَنْقِذَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الْجَهَالَةِ وَحَيْرَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is being quoted as saying that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam did his best in order for taking the ignorance and the ones who had been deviated from the right path, take them out of their ignorance and the deviation that they were in. And he went through 3 levels. The first, or 2 levels. The first, فَأَعْذَرَ فِي الدُّعَاء. He started to call people towards this path, to the path of Islam, to the path of Ahlul Bayt, alayhimu salatu wassalam, to the right path, and left no excuse for anybody at that time and even afterwards that I don't know the truth. So فَأَعْذَرَ فِي الدُّعَاء. He had not left any udhr, any excuse for anybody, and he tried his best to call for the right path. وَنَصَحَ وَمَنَحَ النُّصْحِ. This is the same as I understand it. It means that he tried his best to attract others to the right path. And at the last phase, when nothing worked, وَبَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيكَ. He gave away whatever he had in order for the reason that I talked about. He gave away and sacrificed whatever, literally whatever he had. He gave away and he sacrificed his children. He gave away his brothers, his family, his companions. Whatever he had, he sacrificed it for the sake of Allah and in order for people to be attracted to the right path. وَبَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيكَ لِيَسْتَنْغِضَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الْجَهَالَةِ وَحَيْرَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ, in order for taking out the ignorant from their ignorance and taking out and saving the lost people at that time. And there is a difference between jahala and hayra. There's a difference between these two, as I understand it. Jahala is ignorant, is when a person doesn't know about something, doesn't know about the right path. Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam tried his best and did whatever he did in order for attracting these people, in order for guiding these people who didn't know about the right path to the right path. But the second category, the second field, is the ones who knew the truth, but he had been lost. He had been deviated from the right path. He knew that Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam is the truth. He knew that Yazid was batil. But for some reasons they didn't act according to this knowledge that they had. Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam بَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِي اللَّهِ. He sacrificed his own soul, his own children and family and whatever he had, as I said, in order for taking these people out of their jahala and their ignorance and the deviations that they were in. As I said, we are reviewing the philosophy of the uprising of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam in order for applying it on our own life, in our own era. Could it be applicable? Could this reason or could this situation be applicable on the era that we are living in? Of course it could. If you take a look at the society that we are living in, or at the world that we are living in, we will find that it's exactly like the situation or the era that Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam was living in. So we have this responsibility just like Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam did, in order for saving people and take them out of their ignorance and out of their deviation. I just want to remind you of a couple of people that were at the time of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam and were saved by Imam al-Husayn. Some of them were suffering from the first disease that I talked about, ignorance, jahala, and some others were suffering from the second disease, which was deviations and being lost. There are many of them. If you read the history, there are many of them. One of them that are included in the first category, the jahala, was Wahab, who was a Christian person, and he didn't know about Imam al-Husayn. But Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, while approaching the plain of Karbala, he confronted with this person, and some interactions happened between them, and he was guided to the right path. This person was ignorant. He didn't know about Imam al-Husayn. He didn't know about Islam. He might have heard something about Islam, but he didn't know the reality of Islam. He was a Christian, and he reverted to Islam and got martyred. And actually he was, at that time he was recently gotten married, and he got martyred on the 70th day of his marriage, in the day of Ashura. So actually, basically, he sort of passed his honeymoon in the Karbala. So this was one of the people who was ignorant, and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam saved him. Another person that could be included in the second category is Zuhair ibn Qayn. He was not ignorant. He knew Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He was a Muslim, but he was deviated from the right path. As the history says, he was a Uthmani person. He was one of the adherents of Uthman in the conflict that happened at the time of Uthman and led to the death of Uthman. People went into a couple of categories. Some people started saying that it was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam who killed Uthman, and they were called Uthmanis. So they didn't like Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. They didn't even believe in the wilaya and even the khilafah of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. This person was called Uthmani. Zuhair ibn Qayn, he was an Uthmani person at the beginning. And I'm not sure if you know about this, the story of Zuhair ibn Qayn and how the Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and this person get to see each other. It's a very nice story. He actually refused, he was refusing from seeing Imam al-Hussein from the very beginning. He didn't want to meet Imam al-Hussein, because Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and Zuhair, they both left Mecca at the same time, or close to each other. The time was so close. But Zuhair tried to become sure not to face Imam al-Hussein in any place that they were, for example, settling the tent. He tried to make sure that in no time he would encounter Imam al-Hussein, he would meet. And for this reason, he tried that he would change his place. If Imam al-Hussein would settle in one place, he would change his place in another place. So he tried to make sure that in no condition and under no condition he would encounter Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. But it happened once. And once Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam knew that Zuhair is in that place, he called him and asked him to visit Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And when he went to the tent, something happened. We don't know about it exactly, what happened at that tent between Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and Zuhair. But when he came out of the tent of Imam al-Hussein, he said that this Uthmani person, the person that is deviated from the right path, is not a Shia person. He doesn't like even Imam Ali alayhi salam. But after coming out of the tent of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he says that now I'm Ashura'i. Now I want to go with Imam al-Hussein, and I want to give my life for him and for his goal. So this is another example of people who've been saved by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam from the second category, the ones who've been deviated, the ones who've been in the hayratul dalala, in the bewilderment of deviation. So, and just in parenthesis, I want to refer to this point that the origin and the root of these two diseases that I talked about, ignorance and bewilderment and deviation, the root and the most important reason for these two is hubbud dunya, the love of dunya. And this is actually has been recorded in our hadith, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being quoted as saying that hubbud dunya aslu kulli ma'siyatin وَأَوَّلُ كُلِّ ذَنْبٍ. The love of dunya is the foundation of any sin. So both ignorance, not knowing about the truth, and deviation, being deviated from the right path, can find their roots in hubb al-dunya and love of dunya. So let's go back to the discussion that we have. So Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is telling us that the purpose that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam sacrificed whatever he had is in order for taking out, in order for saving people, because istinqadh is to save a person that is drowning in the water. Okay? So لِيَسْتَنْقِذَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الْجَهَالَةِ, in order for saving people who've been drowning in their sins, in their ignorance, in the bewilderment that they were in. Can we do this at this time? And should we do this? Are we supposed to do so? Of course we are. If we believe that we are Shia, if we believe that we are the followers of Ahlul Bayt, we have to do so. So some people may say that this is not the time of ignorance. This is the time of data and the information. So there is no ignorant person. Everybody has access to any data that he wants. This is not the case, brothers. I may say that the era and the age that we're living in may be worse than the age of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So I think we have this responsibility. Every single of us has this responsibility to try our best in order for saving people and in order for take the people out of their ignorance and their deviation. And sometimes one may say that the people who are not the scholars, people who are not clergy, they cannot help. But at this time, this certain time, this is not the case. Even a person who is not a scholar or a clergy person or an alim, he also or she also can help. Because of this, as I said, the age of data and the age of information and having access to internet, social networks, you can do many things. Everybody can help Islam. Everybody can help this way and this goal, the goal of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. By having, a website, a web page, a page on some social networks, you can maybe guide many people to the right path. So there's no excuse for nobody that I don't have member, I don't have this pulpit to go on. I don't deserve this. This is not the case anymore. Everybody can has his or her member in his website or in his, social networks that he owns. So this is not only a must for all of us, but also this is, I think, is very, very much more important than the time of Imam al-Hussein or for the ones who've been living at that time. So the importance of this, I think, is so clear. The last thing that remains is, how can we do this? How can we guide others towards this path? I think there are many ways, but 2 or 3 of them are much more important, and I want to enumerate them for you. The first one, since we want to invite others and guide others to this path, the first one is to acquire knowledge. We have to acquire knowledge. Everybody has to acquire knowledge. And getting acquainted with Islam, with the right path, in order for disseminating this message. If a person wants to disseminate, if a person wants to follow Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in فَأَعْذَرَ في الدعاء. If a person wants to fulfill this responsibility, فَأَعْذَرَ في الدعاء, calling people, he first has to acquire knowledge, has to get acquainted with his religion or her religion. And the second responsibility that we have is, after acquiring knowledge, disseminating this knowledge. As I said, in whatever means that we can use. If we can use this pulpit, okay, let it be this pulpit. If we can use internet. Whatever we can use in order for this disseminating this message and spreading this message out, we have to use it. So the first one is to acquiring knowledge. The second one, to disseminating this knowledge to others. And the third one, which is maybe one of the most important ones, that we have to get others and make others acquainted with the way of Imam al-Hussein and with Imam al-Hussein himself. There's another important way in order for inviting others to this path, or for taking them out of their ignorance and their deviations that they are in. Getting them acquainted with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Because the Ahlul Bayt have been quoted as saying that كلنا سفن النجاة وسفينة الحسين أسرع إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is the light of guidance and the arkship of Savior. So I think inviting others to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, bring them into the majalis of Imam al-Hussein would be a very good and beneficial method in order for saving others from their ignorance. Brothers, here in Iran, in any other country, we have this problem, the ignorance. And the ignorance is not knowing about the basic things. The ignorance is about the Islam. Even Muslims, even our Shia brothers and sisters, they don't know about Islam. They don't know about Shia. I had experiences abroad, and I have this experience, face to face. Many people, unfortunately, they don't know about their own religion. So this is our duty. As I said, use whatever means that you can use, and maybe you can even tell others to do so. So the inviting others to the path of Imam al-Hussein, and I myself has experienced this, that the system that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam has is a sort of exception, is a sort of, as this tradition, if it's authentic tradition, says, نحن سفن النجاة وسفينة الحسين أسرع. The arkship of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is faster than any other safina. They themselves say this. It doesn't mean that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is better than others, better than other ma'sumin, because he himself says that Abi khayrun minni, ummi khayrun minni. But the system that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is placed in, or this event that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is center of, which is an exception. So I think we can get the most and the best benefit of this system, inviting others towards Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. So I just want to recap with the following, that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, which is a ma'soom, who is a ma'soom, and his analysis is completely different from others' analysis, is saying that the philosophy of the uprising of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is in order for taking people out of their ignorance and their deviation. And can we and should we apply this philosophy that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam sacrificed whatever he had for this reason? Should we do the same? Of course we should. What are the ways? The first way getting acquainted with Islam, getting acquainted with the way of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. The second one, spreading out this knowledge. And the third one, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam himself, making others get acquainted with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and he will do the rest. I'm sure of this. I have experienced this, and there are many stories about Imam al-Hussein, and I don't want to bother you with more, but there are many. Just this Zuhair ibn Ghayn is one of these examples, that he was Uthmani, but I don't know, it wasn't out of a blue, but it was, very suddenly. But this is the way that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam works. The way of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam works exceptionally. Okay, so inviting others to this path and making others become acquainted with the path of Imam al-Hussein, and this miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the best ways for others, or for us to get others off and out of their ignorance and bewilderment. I want to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the faraj and delivery and reappearance of Imam Zaman alayhi salatu wassalam. I want to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put all of us, all the Shia, all the ones who are mourning Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam at these days and nights, put them the best soldiers of Imam al-Hussein and Imam al-Hujjah alayhim as-salatu was-salam. And I want to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to end our lives with the best destination, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.